In 1453, the city of Constantinople fell out of Roman hands after withstanding a 2-month siege by the Ottoman army. The city had been an imperial capital for over 1,000 years, and though besieged many times in that millennium, had only ever fallen once before, as a result of the Fourth Crusade of 1204. Though the city was recaptured by the Byzantines after the Fourth Crusade, they had no such luck following its conquest by the Ottomans, who now ruled from the walls that once protected them. In years since, the legacy of the Eastern Roman Empire has captured the imagination of history enthusiasts. Many paradox players have fought tooth and nail to preserve or revive the Byzantine Empire from certain doom. So, naturally, I'm going to save us all the trouble and make sure it happens a lot faster. Hello everyone, today we're going to recap my attempts at a challenge I recently saw. 2 months ago, Hey Kara posted a video recapping her efforts to dismantle the Byzantine Empire in under 10 years. The link's in the description, so if you somehow stumbled across this without having seen her stuff, go check it out. Her best run saw the empire collapse in just 8 years, 11 months, and 5 days. I wanted to see if I could do it even faster. One of the most important conclusions of Kara's runs was that a purely internal focus would not raise enough men to take on the Byzantine army. Though fellow vassals can be forced into my disillusioned faction, it requires a strong hook on each ruler, and those are hard to come by. Even with the fabricate hook scheme from the intrigue lifestyle, it is entirely dependent on RNG what type of hook you get, and that's even if you manage to get one. Allying them through normal marriages is useful for wars within the Empire, but they can't be called into the war like external allies if it's against our liege. So my first plan was to make a diplomatic character that came with a handful of existing children. The hope was that I could immediately marry them off to powerful external realms, negotiate an extra alliance using the perk through the diplomacy tree, press my demands for dissolution, and then call in a swarm of allies to support my weak position and overwhelm the Byzantines. The problem with that plan was pretty immediately apparent. No one outside of the Empire seemed eager to marry my children, primarily on account of our religious differences. This hit me twice when I learned that none of the powerful kingdoms were interested in negotiating an alliance with a weak Orthodox duke. I know, who could have guessed? Even when I befriended him, Charles the Bald had no interest in formalizing an alliance. So, seeing nowhere else to turn, I pressed my demands, with the hope that fortune would favor the bold.
Right to jail, right away.
Yeah, it didn't go great. Now, I don't think this strategy wouldn't work. The Emperor was weakened to the point that with my alliances, we maybe could have won a crucial first victory and moved forward with that momentum. But I took a bad battle early on, hoping the disembark penalty would help us hold out long enough for reinforcements to arrive. The reinforcements did arrive, just in time to start a second battle by themselves after we broke. If I'd been a bit more patient and assembled with my allies a bit more strategically at the start, we might have pulled it out. But after the disastrous first battle, the war's conclusion was pretty inevitable. But hey, at least my friend Charles bailed me out. For attempt 2, I turned to a martial character. My defeats on the field had brought attempt 1 crashing down around me, so I hoped creating an unreasonably talented commander could help me even the overwhelming odds. I had come up with a set of opening moves to put into motion on day 1. With less than 10 years to destroy the Byzantines, and less than 9 years to beat Kara's time, I needed to ensure I maximize my resources without any downtime. So on day 1, I got married. Then I changed my contract with the Emperor to demand the position of steward for the extra gold income, and I set my priest to work fabricating a claim. The plan was to conquer enough land to form a kingdom within the Empire, and hopefully by that time I would have enough kids to forge some powerful alliances leveraging my increased status. I was assuming that I would be able to seduce my wife to get those kids. Having not noticed her incompatible gluttonous trait, that part of the plan was unfortunately set back. I declared war when my claim came through, and with my ally I set to work taking over the rest of my capital duchy. We won a solid first victory as they landed on our shores. Then pushed to siege the war goal, At which point I finally remembered to set my priest up to fabricate the next claim. Oh well. Unfortunately, my wife then decided she thought I was a great friend, putting a stop to that part of the plan. Still, I wasn't too worried. I had one son already and another child on the way, seduction notwithstanding. So I still imagined I could get a useful alliance once I was a king. Winning a fairly decisive battle at the war goal, the enemy broke once more as my ally and I captured the county. Unfortunately, it wasn't as decisive as I might have hoped, and I was forced to chase them across the Aegean Sea to finally claim victory. As one war ended, another began. With my second claim fabricated, I immediately moved south to get the last county needed to form the Kingdom of Hellas. I began sieging Corinthos as my ally actually made themselves independently useful by attacking the enemy in our territory. For the third time, my wife asked me to kick a courtier out of our court, and I finally denied her. One siege and a stack wipe later, however, and the final county was mine. With the money graciously given to me by the ecumenical patriarch, I formed the Kingdom of Hellas and quickly betrothed my second son to secure a Lotharingian alliance. I broke my first son's betrothal, sorry, Epirus, and arranged an alliance with the most powerful person I could find, Balaton. I finally killed the emperor to put his young child on the throne, and with the Byzantines off fighting in Arabia, I decided it was the best moment to press the demand for dissolution. Although I likely should have waited a bit longer, hopefully get another child to marry off, wait for Balaton's war to finish, I was making such good time that I just got antsy, and thought the war in Arabia would be distracting enough for me and Lotharingia to take care of things. That assumption would prove costly. My allies were bogged down in wars of their own. Balaton was unable to break through and finish its war to the north, while Lotharingia fought in Italy to defend a fellow Carling. I desperately attempted to stall as the Byzantines landed an army that massively outnumbered me, but with a resounding defeat as I was caught, all my preparations collapsed around me. Measles arrived in my lands as we broke, infecting myself, my wife, and my first son. My wife died first, and though I and my first son survived our illness, my second son was also claimed by measles. Having retreated to Anatolia, and with my allies nowhere in sight, I could do nothing but watch as the Byzantine army captured my lands castle by castle. Without enough soldiers to even siege the Anatolian lands, I was forced to admit defeat once more. If only I'd listened to my wife and the exiled Pelagia. Surely that was the missing piece of the puzzle. I believed in this strategy, though. Last time we had the numbers to stand a fighting chance, but I got too eager and paid the price for it. I would have to work around my allies to ensure they would show up to bolster my numbers. I'd learned some important lessons, and was ready to put it all to the test to bring the Byzantines down. I made a similar character as I'd used for Attempt 2, enough of a martial focus to get the strategist trait from the start. The setup was largely the same as well. I married to secure a fellow vassal as an ally, careful to ensure my new wife would be possible to seduce. I put my priest to work fabricating our claim, and modified my contract to secure the role of steward yet again. I also briefly considered murdering my priest in the hopes of getting a better one and thus getting a faster claim, but quickly dismissed the idea. To prepare for potential gold requests from the Patriarch, I set out on an early pilgrimage as I waited for my claims to fabricate. Upon my return, it became a waiting game for my claim, as I inspected the map and considered possible targets. I was mostly playing on a slower speed this time around, so I had more time to really think about my options. And I definitely didn't forget to take the steward position again on succession. By raising my crown authority, I provoked my vassals into creating a liberty faction, which I promptly ignored by declaring war for my newly fabricated claim. As the Duke of the Aegean Isles sieged my vassal's land, I waited until the faction pressed its demands. Refusing them, they rose up and attempted to drive the invaders away as I moved in to clean up the traitors who were now too separated to pose any real threat. As I defeated the Duke's men, I was surprised to take over their siege progress. With a lucky capture, the rebellion was quickly defeated, allowing me to revoke titles and bolster my power even further. I called in my ally to wrap things up with my war, and just a few months after winning the first, we moved south again to take the second county needed to form the Kingdom of Hellas. Not much of note with this second war. We won every battle handily, and the Caesars quickly saw us take victory. Some lucky captures added gold to the treasury that would soon come in handy for forming the kingdom and filling out our men-at-arms. I got measles again, though my doctor proved more effective this time around, and I quickly recovered. With all the land needed to form my kingdom and begin Stage 2, I hesitated. I didn't want this attempt to fall apart like the last ones. I figured a little extra gold might help, and with just 17 months until I could pick up Ducal Conquest for the title creation cost reduction, I thought it might be worth the wait. Not wanting to completely waste the time available, I declared a holy war for Crete after realizing that there were no nearby Muwaldi rulers to assist them. As I finished the holy war, however, I started to feel the pressure of time while I waited for that perk. So, I founded my kingdom and set up my alliances. Lotharingia was once again brought into the fold, this time without any wars going in the background. I chose the nearby but strong Benevento for my second ally, as they were also not otherwise occupied. I hesitated a bit longer trying to pick up a negotiated alliance because I really wanted to pull out all the stops and make this work. But seeing the time tick away, I pressed for dissolution with just 2 years left to win the challenge. Luck was on my side as my allies immediately came to my aid. Learning my lesson from last time, I allowed the Emperor to capture one of my counties as I waited for the Lotharingians to add their numbers to ours. A few critical battles and sieges were all it took before... And yes, I accidentally let a few days pass before I enforced peace. Oops. But with that, I successfully dissolved the Byzantine Empire in less than 10 years, and beat Haykar's time, destroying the empire in just 8 years and 5 months to the day. But we can do even better. Creating a talented intrigue character, I take all the perks in the intrigue tree and modify my contract on day 1, demanding the position of Spymaster. I begin a maxed out abduction scheme and wait. When it's finally time for the scheme to fire, I imprison the Emperor and press the demand for dissolution. He refuses the demand, beginning a war that he has already lost by being in my dungeons. With that, I enforce peace and dissolve the legacy of Rome in just 7 months and 16 days. A little faster if I'd noticed the time was still passing once the war started. Oops. I had a lot of fun with this challenge, and it was a lot harder than I'd initially thought it would be. Looking back, I think the diplomacy strategy would have been more effective if I'd become a king before trying to marry off my kids, but by the time I dove into the military strategy, I was using all my character points making a martial powerhouse and didn't have points to spare on children, so it was mostly up to RNG how many alliances I would have access to when the time came. Obviously, the intrigue strategy was the most effective, but as cheesy as it was, I wouldn't really consider that the same category as the initial attempts. But let me know what you think in the comments. Are there any better strategies? Did I waste any valuable time that you could get shaved off? If you watched all the way through, thank you. Let me know if there's something you'd like to see. With that, I've been Kran, and you've been the viewer. Have a good one.